"Uncle, I don't have anything to eat. Please help me," girl tells Millionaire. Michael Thompson was leaving another important meeting when he felt something tug at the sleeve of his Italian suit. He had just closed a multi-million-dollar deal and could only think about getting home to rest after another exhausting day running his construction company. When he looked down, he saw a girl with curly hair and teary, almond-shaped eyes. She couldn't have been more than 9 years old, wearing a faded t-shirt that had seen better days. "Uncle, I don't have anything to eat. Please help me," the girl said, her voice trembling as she held tightly to his suit sleeve. Michael was speechless for a few seconds. It wasn't unusual to encounter beggars in downtown New York City, but something about her gaze struck him differently. The girl didn't seem to be pretending or putting on an act. There was a genuine sadness in her eyes that made him stop completely. "What's your name, little one?" Michael asked, crouching to her level. "Emily, sir. My mom is really sick and we don't have anything to eat today. She told me not to leave, but I'm so hungry," the girl replied, wiping her tears with the back of her hand. Michael glanced around and noticed how people hurried past without even looking at the situation. It bothered him deeply. As a child, he had also gone through hard times before his family made it in business. "Where's your mom now?" he asked, feeling something strange when he heard the name. Emily was the name his sister had always said she'd give her daughter if she had one. "She's at home, really weak. She hasn't been able to get out of bed for 3 days. We live over in Brooklyn in a boarding house," Emily explained, pointing vaguely in a direction. Michael's heart tightened. There was something familiar about this girl, but he couldn't place it. Maybe it was just the natural compassion he felt for children in vulnerable situations. "Come with me. Let's get you something to eat," he said, holding out his hand. Emily hesitated for a moment, remembering her mother's warnings about not accepting anything from strangers. But hunger won out, and she took the well-dressed man's hand. They walked to a nearby restaurant, a simple but clean place Michael knew. The girl was amazed by the amount of food at the buffet, her eyes lighting up at all the options. "Take whatever you want," Michael said, noticing how she stared in awe. As Emily filled her plate, Michael watched her every move. There was something in her gestures, the way she held her fork, that reminded him of someone. A distant memory tried to surface, but he couldn't quite grasp it. "My mom always talks about you," Emily said suddenly, chewing a piece of chicken. Michael nearly choked on his soda. "What do you mean?" "Your mom talks about me." "But she doesn't even know me," he replied, confused. "She says she has a rich brother who lives in New York City, that he works with buildings and has lots of money. She always cries when she talks about him," Emily explained with the blunt honesty of a child. Michael's world stopped at that moment. A chill ran down his spine, and his hands trembled slightly. There was only one person who could have told a child those things. "What's your mom's name?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady. "Jennifer Thompson Davis, but everyone calls her Jen," Emily answered, still eating as if she hadn't just revealed something that would change everything. Michael froze. Jennifer was his younger sister, the one he'd had a terrible fight with 15 years ago. Back then, she had gotten involved with a man he disapproved of, and in the stubbornness of youth, he had said awful things. The last memory he had of her was of tears and screams, with Jennifer storming out of the house swearing she never wanted to see him again. "Are you sure about your mother's name?" insisted Michael, still trying to process the information. "Yes. She has an old photo where she's hugging a guy who looks like you. She said he's my Uncle Michael," confirmed Emily. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now back to the story. Michael felt his legs weaken. That girl was his niece. The daughter Jennifer had always dreamed of having was right there, in front of him, starving and begging for help on the street. Guilt hit him like a punch to the gut. "Emily, I need to talk to your mother urgently. Can you take me to her?" he asked, trying to stay calm. "Of course, Uncle Michael, but she won't want to talk to you. She gets really sad whenever someone mentions your name," the girl warned honestly. The walk to the boarding house in Brooklyn was tense and silent. Michael couldn't stop thinking about everything he'd lost because of his pride. 15 years without knowing about his sister, 15 years without meeting his niece, and now he was discovering they'd been struggling for so long. The boarding house was an old, poorly maintained building. Emily led him up creaky stairs to the third floor. The smell of dampness and mold hung in the air. Michael tried to hide his shock at seeing the conditions his family had been living in. "Mom, I'm back, and I brought Uncle Michael," Emily called out as she opened the door to a small, dimly lit room. A weak voice came from inside. "Emily, how many times have I told you not to make things up?" The voice stopped abruptly. Michael stepped into the room and saw an unrecognizable woman lying on an old bed. Jennifer had lost a lot of weight and seemed to have aged far more than the 15 years that had passed. Her eyes, once bright with joy, now looked dull from hardship. "Michael," she whispered, trying to prop herself up on her elbows. "Hi, Jen," he replied, his voice choked with emotion. The silence that followed was heavy with pain. Emily looked back and forth between them, not fully understanding the tension, but sensing something important was happening. "What are you doing here?" Jennifer asked, her voice a mix of anger and sadness. I didn't know you were like this. If I had, I would have helped sooner," Michael began, but his sister cut him off. "Helped? Where were you when I needed you most?" "When I found out I was pregnant and had nowhere to go," Jennifer shot back, tears starting to stream down her face. Michael hung his head, feeling the weight of every word. He'd been rich and successful all these years, while his sister and niece suffered in poverty. The irony of it all devastated him. "Jen, I know I was wrong. I know I was proud and stubborn. But I'm here now and I want to help," he said, stepping closer to the bed. "I don't want your pity, Michael. We've managed without you until now," Jennifer replied, turning her face to the wall. Emily, who had stayed quiet until then, went to her mother and held her hand. "Mom, he gave me food when I was hungry. He seems nice," the girl said with the innocent wisdom of children. Jennifer looked at her daughter, then at her brother. Michael could see the internal battle between her wounded pride and her love for her daughter. It was obvious she needed help, but accepting it meant swallowing years of pain and resentment. "Jennifer, tell me what happened all these years. I want to understand everything," Michael asked, pulling up an old chair to sit by the bed. Slowly, the story began to unfold. Jennifer told him how she'd gotten pregnant by the boyfriend Michael so strongly disapproved of. How he'd abandoned her as soon as he found out about the pregnancy. How she'd tried to come home, but pride wouldn't let her after their fight. "I tried to reach you a few times, but you'd changed your address and phone number. It was like you'd disappeared," she explained, her voice growing weaker. Michael felt a stab in his heart. He had indeed changed his contact information several times for business, but it never occurred to him that this might prevent his sister from finding him if she needed to. "And Emily's father, did he ever help?" Michael asked. "He vanished when he found out I was pregnant. Never contacted me again. I had to raise Emily alone, working odd jobs and whatever cleaning work I could find," Jennifer replied. Emily listened carefully, learning details about her history she'd never known before. It was hard for a child to understand why her father had simply disappeared from their lives. "Jen, you're sick. You need a doctor, medicine, proper care," Michael observed, noticing how pale and fragile she looked. "Doctors are expensive. We manage as best we can," she replied, trying to appear strong. "But you don't have to manage alone anymore. I'm here now and I'll take care of both of you," Michael declared firmly. Jennifer looked at him with suspicion. "And why would you do that? Out of guilt? Pity?" she questioned. "Out of love, because you're my family, and I was a fool to let pride get in the way," Michael answered, tears finally welling in his eyes. Emily moved closer to her uncle and held his large hand with her small ones. "Uncle Michael, can you make Mommy better?" she asked hopefully. "I'll do everything in my power, Princess," he promised, stroking his niece's curly hair. Jennifer watched the interaction between her daughter and brother. There was no denying Emily had quickly bonded with Michael. The girl desperately needed a father figure, and her uncle seemed genuinely willing to fill that void. "I don't want your charity, Michael," Jennifer said, though some of the initial stiffness had left her voice. "It's not charity, it's responsibility. Responsibility I should have taken long ago," he replied. Michael looked around the miserable room where his family had been living. The walls were damp, the mattress sagged with age, and their few clothes were stored in plastic bags. The situation was worse than he'd imagined. "You're leaving this place today," he declared, pulling out his phone. "Michael, no," Jennifer began, but he cut her off. "No arguments. I'll arrange a decent apartment for you and schedule doctor's appointments. This isn't negotiable," he said with the same firmness he used in business. Emily clapped excitedly, while Jennifer still hesitated to accept the help. Michael called his assistant and quickly arranged everything. Within hours, he'd secured a furnished apartment in a safe neighborhood and booked appointments with the best doctors in the city. "Uncle Michael, are you magic?" Emily asked, amazed at how quickly things were being fixed. Michael laughed for the first time in ages. His niece's innocence was melting all the barriers he'd built around his heart during years focused solely on business. "I'm not magic, Princess, just doing what I should have done long ago," he answered. By day's end, they were settled in a clean, comfortable apartment. Jennifer remained in shock at the sudden change in their lives. Emily ran through the apartment, exploring each room with the joy of a child who finally had a real home. "Michael, why are you doing all this?" asked Jennifer as she settled onto the new sofa. "Because I realized how much I've lost all these years because of my stupid pride. Because you're my family, and family takes care of each other," he replied, sitting beside her. "I'm still angry with you," Jennifer confessed. "I know, and you have every right to be. But I hope I can earn your forgiveness in time," said Michael. Emily approached the two, carrying a stuffed bear Michael had given her during their afternoon shopping. "Mom, do we have a real family now?" she asked, climbing onto Jennifer's lap. Jennifer looked at her daughter and then at her brother. For the first time in years, she felt a spark of hope ignite in her chest. Maybe it was possible to rebuild the family bonds she'd lost. The next day, Michael accompanied Jennifer to her first doctor's appointment. The diagnosis was serious. She had severe anemia caused by chronic malnutrition and stress. She would need intensive medical treatment and constant monitoring. "Doctor, will she be okay?" asked Michael, worried. "With proper treatment and consistent care, yes. But it will be a long process. She'll need plenty of rest, proper nutrition and medication," the doctor explained. Michael didn't hesitate to arrange everything the doctor recommended. He hired a caregiver to stay with Jennifer during the day and ensure she took all her medications on time. Meanwhile, Emily was adapting quickly to her new life. Michael enrolled her in a private school near the apartment and provided everything she needed for her studies. "Uncle Michael, the kids at school have moms and dads. Can I say you're my dad?" Emily asked one day, as he helped her with homework. The question caught Michael off guard. He'd never thought about being a father, but the idea of caring for Emily as his own didn't scare him. On the contrary, he felt a genuine love growing for the brave, affectionate girl. "You can call me whatever you want, Princess, but it's important you know I'm your uncle, and that's very special too," he explained. "Is being an uncle better than being a dad?" she asked curiously. "Being an uncle is like being a dad of the heart, someone who chose to love you, even when they didn't have to," Michael replied, surprised by his own wisdom. Emily smiled and hugged her uncle tightly. At that moment, Michael knew he'd found his true purpose in life. It wasn't building skyscrapers or making money. It was taking care of the family he'd nearly lost forever. Jennifer watched the bond between her brother and daughter with mixed feelings. On one hand, she was happy to see Emily so joyful and cared for. On the other, she still wrestled with wounded pride and years of accumulated pain. "He's changing her, Michael," Jennifer said one night after Emily had gone to bed. "What do you mean?" he asked, concerned. "She's more confident, happier. It's been so long since I've seen her smile like this," Jennifer explained. "But I'm scared." "Scared of what?" "Scared you'll give up. Scared that one day you'll get tired of us and leave, like everyone else always has," she confessed, tears welling up. Michael moved closer and took his sister's hands. "Jen, I'm not going anywhere. I made a terrible mistake in the past, but I won't repeat it. You're my family, and family doesn't abandon each other," he promised. "It's hard to trust after so many years of suffering alone," Jennifer admitted. "I understand. And I'll prove to you this time is different," Michael assured her. Days turned into weeks, and the new family's routine took shape. Michael had rearranged his work schedule to spend more time with Jennifer and Emily. He discovered that being a successful businessman meant nothing if he had no one to share his success with. Emily was thriving at her new school. Her grades were excellent, and she had made several friends. The teacher told Michael that she had never seen a child adapt so well and quickly to a new reality. "She has impressive emotional intelligence for her age," the teacher said during a meeting. "It's like she has a natural wisdom for handling change." Michael smiled proudly. His niece truly was special. She had been through so much suffering, yet she kept her joy and ability to love intact. Jennifer was also gradually improving. The medication was working and she was starting to regain color in her face. The doctor said she was responding well to treatment, but would still need a few more months to fully recover. "Michael, I need to talk to you," Jennifer said one afternoon when Emily was at school. "Of course, what is it?" he replied, noticing the seriousness in his sister's tone. "I want to work. I can't depend on you forever," she declared. Michael sighed. He knew this conversation would come eventually, but he had hoped Jennifer would wait until she was fully recovered before thinking about work. "Jen, you're still recovering. There's no rush," he tried to argue. "Yes, there is. I need my dignity back. I need to feel useful and independent," she insisted. Michael thought for a moment. He understood his sister's feelings. Everyone needed purpose and autonomy. Maybe there was a way to balance her needs with her medical care. "What if you worked with me at the company?" he suggested. "I don't know anything about construction," Jennifer replied. "But you understand people. I was thinking of creating a social responsibility department at the company. Projects to help families in vulnerable situations like ours was," Michael explained. Jennifer fell silent for a few moments, considering the proposal. "You're not just making this up to give me a job, are you?" she asked skeptically. "No. Actually, seeing your situation made me realize how many other families must be going through the same thing. I want to use the company's resources to make a difference in their lives," Michael answered sincerely. The idea began to take shape in Jennifer's mind. She had always been good with people and could use her own experience of hardship to help other families. "All right, I accept, but on one condition," she said. "What?" "I want a fair salary for the work, not a family favor," Jennifer demanded. Michael smiled. His sister was regaining the strength of character she had always had. "Of course. You'll be an employee like anyone else," he agreed. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. By the end of that week, Jennifer had started working at her brother's company. Michael arranged a comfortable office for her and an assistant to help with the initial tasks. The social responsibility project started small, but quickly grew. Emily was delighted to hear her mother was working with her uncle. "Now we're a family that works together?" she asked during dinner. "We're a family that supports each other," Michael corrected. "Everyone does their part to take care of one another." "And what's my part?" Emily wanted to know. "Your part is to study hard, be a good girl, and make us proud," Jennifer answered, stroking her daughter's hair. "That's easy," Emily exclaimed, making the adults laugh. Life seemed to finally be settling down for the family. Michael had found a balance between work and personal life. Jennifer was recovering and feeling useful again. Emily was growing up happy and secure. But their peace was shattered one Thursday afternoon when Michael received an unexpected call at his office. "Hello, Michael Thompson?" said a male voice on the other end. "Yes, who's speaking?" Michael replied. "My name is Brandon Davis. I'm Emily's father, and I've come for my daughter," the man announced. Michael felt his blood run cold. Emily's father, who had disappeared nearly 10 years ago, was back. And from the tone of his voice, it didn't sound like this was just a friendly visit. "How did you get my number?" Michael asked, trying to stay calm. "I have my sources. I heard my daughter is living with a millionaire. I've come to claim what's rightfully mine," Brandon said arrogantly. "Your daughter isn't an object to be claimed. Where were you all these years when she and her mother were struggling?" Michael shot back, anger rising in his voice. That's none of your business. I want to see my daughter today, Brandon demanded. Michael slammed the phone down hard but knew the problem was only beginning. He immediately called Jennifer. "Jen, I need to talk to you urgently. Come to the office, but don't bring Emily," he said, trying not to sound alarmed. When Jennifer arrived at the office, Michael told her about Brandon's call. His sister's face turned pale, and she began to tremble. "He can't take Emily. She barely even remembers him," Jennifer said, panic clear in her voice. "Calm down, Jen. We'll handle this the right way. I need to understand the legal situation better," Michael said, already thinking of calling his lawyers. "Michael, you don't understand. He's dangerous when he wants something. And if he found out about the money..." Jennifer couldn't finish the sentence. "He won't get near either of you. I promise," Michael assured her, hugging his frightened sister. That night, Michael hired private security to watch the apartment where Jennifer and Emily lived. He also scheduled an urgent meeting with his lawyers to understand Brandon's parental rights and how to protect his niece. Emily noticed something was off about the adult's behavior, but they tried to hide the situation to avoid scaring her. "Mom, why do you and Uncle Michael seem sad?" she asked at dinner. "We're not sad, sweetheart. Just tired from work," Jennifer lied, forcing a smile. "Can I do anything to help?" Emily offered sweetly. Michael looked at the kind, innocent girl and felt fury rising in his chest. He wouldn't let anyone destroy the peace they had fought so hard to build. "You already help just by being here, Princess," he said, kissing his niece's forehead. The next day, Michael's lawyers brought troubling news. Legally, Brandon still had parental rights over Emily, even though he had abandoned her. To restrict those rights, they'd need to prove neglect or abandonment in a long, complicated court battle. "What if he just wants money?" Michael asked. "Even then, he could use his daughter as leverage. Unfortunately, the law doesn't always protect a child's best interest right away," the lawyer explained. Michael left the meeting frustrated and worried. He couldn't bear the thought of Emily being used as a bargaining chip by a father who had never shown her love or care. That afternoon, when he went to pick Emily up from school, Michael noticed a suspicious man watching the gate. His heart raced, but he stayed calm to avoid alarming his niece. "Uncle Michael, there's a man over there staring at us," Emily whispered, showing the same sharp awareness she always had. "Don't worry, Princess, let's go home," Michael said, quickening his steps toward the car. On the way to the apartment, Michael noticed they were being followed by a black car. He immediately called private security and requested backup. He wasn't going to take any risks with his family's safety. When they arrived at the apartment, Jennifer was nervous, pacing back and forth in the living room. "He showed up here earlier today," she said as soon as Michael walked in. "He said he wants to see Emily and that he has rights." "What did you tell him?" Michael asked. "That he lost any rights when he abandoned his daughter?" "But he got threatening, said he'd be back," Jennifer replied, her hands shaking. Emily listened to the conversation with wide eyes. It was impossible to hide the situation from her any longer. "Who is he, Mom?" the girl asked. Jennifer looked at Michael, searching for support. This was a conversation she had dreaded having one day. "He's your father, sweetheart. Your biological father," Jennifer said, kneeling to meet her daughter's height. "But I thought Uncle Michael was my dad," Emily said, confused. "Uncle Michael is like a father to you, but you have another father who didn't live with us," Jennifer explained, trying to be gentle. "Why didn't he live with us?" Emily pressed. Michael stepped closer and knelt beside Jennifer. "Sometimes grown-ups make wrong choices, Princess. Your biological father made a wrong choice when he left," he said, choosing his words carefully. "And now he wants to come back?" Emily asked. "He wants to meet you," Jennifer replied, avoiding details about Brandon's true intentions. Emily fell silent for a moment, processing the information. Then she surprised the adults with her next question. "Do I have to go with him if he wants me to?" The question broke Michael and Jennifer's hearts. It was exactly what they feared, but they hadn't expected Emily to voice it herself. "No one will take you away from us, Princess. We're a family now," Michael promised, though he wasn't sure how to legally guarantee it. "But what if he's a good dad?" Emily asked, with the innocence of someone who still believes all adults are capable of love. Michael and Jennifer exchanged glances. How do you explain to a child that not all parents can properly care for their kids? "Emily, Do you remember what our life was like before Uncle Michael came along? Jennifer asked. I remember. We were hungry, and you got sick, the girl replied. And where was your biological father then? Jennifer continued. Emily thought for a moment before lowering her head. He wasn't there, she whispered. Exactly. A real father doesn't abandon his children when they need him, Jennifer explained. So Uncle Michael is more of a dad than him, Emily concluded. Uncle Michael is your father in heart, and that's far more important than any piece of paper, Jennifer confirmed. That night, Michael barely slept. He kept thinking of ways to legally protect Emily. He decided that if necessary, he'd spend his entire fortune on lawyers to ensure the girl stayed safe. The next morning, Brandon showed up at Michael's company unannounced. The secretary tried to stop him, but he forced his way into the office. I thought I made it clear I want to see my daughter, Brandon said, sitting in the chair across from Michael's desk, uninvited. Michael studied the man for the first time. Brandon was thin, dressed in worn clothes but trying to project an elegance he didn't possess. There was something in his eyes that didn't inspire trust. And I thought I made it clear you lost any rights to her when you abandoned her, Michael replied, keeping his tone professional but firm. The law doesn't see it that way, pal. I'm her father, and I have rights, Brandon said, with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Rights you never exercised. Where's the child support you should have been paying all these years? Michael shot back. I was going through a rough patch, but now I'm doing better and want to make up for lost time with my daughter, Brandon lied shamelessly. Michael knew it was a lie. He had hired a private investigator the night before and already discovered that Brandon had other abandoned families and debts all over the city. What kind of rough patch? Michael asked, testing how far Brandon was willing to go with his lies. Work problems, you know how it is. But now I have my own business and can take proper care of Emily, Brandon made up. And what kind of business is that? Michael pressed. Brandon hesitated for a moment, clearly not expecting to be questioned in such detail. I work in sales, general sales, he answered vaguely. Michael almost laughed at the evasive response. It was obvious Brandon was lying and probably didn't even have a steady job. Brandon, let's stop beating around the bush. How much do you want? Michael asked directly. Brandon's face lit up, revealing his true intentions. I don't know what you're talking about, he tried to deny, but his greedy smile gave him away. You don't want Emily. You want money. So tell me how much it'll take for you to disappear from our lives forever, Michael said with disgust. Brandon pretended to be outraged for a few seconds, but soon dropped the act. Look, you're right. I'm not in a position to take care of a kid right now, but I can't just give up my rights for free, he said, showing his true colors. How much? Michael repeated, wanting to end this as quickly as possible. 50 grand, Brandon said, as if he were doing them a favor. Michael nearly exploded with anger. This man was literally selling his own daughter. 20,000 and you sign over your parental rights. Today, Michael countered. 30, Brandon insisted. 25. That's my final offer, Michael said firmly. Brandon thought for a moment, then nodded. Deal. But I want the money in cash, he demanded. Michael called his lawyer and scheduled a meeting for 2 in the afternoon. He didn't want to drag this out any longer. The sooner Brandon was out of their lives, the better. At exactly 2 o'clock, Brandon signed all the necessary documents to permanently relinquish his parental rights over Emily. Michael handed over the money as agreed, disgusted by every bill he gave. Pleasure doing business with you, Brandon said cynically, stuffing the cash away. If you ever come near my family again, you won't get off so easy, Michael warned. Brandon left the lawyer's office with the money, and Michael hoped he'd never have to see him again. He immediately called Jennifer to share the good news. It's over, Jen, he gave up his rights. Emily is safe, he said, feeling a huge weight lift off his shoulders. Jennifer burst into tears of relief on the other end of the line. Thank you, Michael. Thank you for protecting our daughter, she said, finally acknowledging her brother as an essential part of the family. When Michael arrived at the apartment that night, he found Emily drawing at the living room table. She had made a picture of 3 people holding hands, her mum, and her uncle. It's our family, Uncle Michael, she said proudly, showing him the drawing. It's the most beautiful family I've ever seen, he replied, moved. Jennifer walked over and hugged her brother. "Michael, forgive me for all the anger I held onto these years. You saved our family," she said, tears streaming down her face. "No, Jen, you two saved me. I was empty, just focused on work. Emily taught me what real love is," Michael answered. "And now, what happens to us?" Jennifer asked. "Now we're going to be a real family." "Official and forever," said Michael, looking at the two women who had transformed his life. That evening, the three of them had dinner together, talked about plans for the future, and laughed over Emily's school adventures. It was the first time in a long while that Michael had felt truly at home. A few weeks later, Michael made a decision that surprised everyone, including himself. During a family dinner, he made an important announcement. "Jen, Emily, I have something to tell you," he said, sounding nervous. "What is it, Uncle Michael?" Emily asked, ever curious. "I want to make our family official. I want to adopt Emily as my daughter," he declared. Jennifer was stunned. Emily didn't fully grasp the meaning, but she could tell it was important by the way the adults reacted. "Michael, are you sure?" Jennifer asked, emotional. "I've never been more certain of anything in my life. Emily is already my daughter in my heart. I want it to be official too," he confirmed. "Does that mean you'll be my real dad?" Emily asked, starting to understand. "It means I'll be your father forever in every way that matters," Michael replied. Emily jumped into her uncle's lap and hugged him with all the strength in her little arms. "I always wanted a dad who stayed," she said, making Michael and Jennifer tear up with emotion. The adoption process was relatively quick, considering the biological father had relinquished his parental rights. Within 3 months, Michael was officially Emily's father in the eyes of the law. On the day of the final adoption hearing, Emily was nervous but excited. She had prepared a speech for the judge, explaining why she wanted Michael to be her father. "Your Honor, Michael gave me food when I was hungry, a home when I had nowhere to live, and a family when I felt alone. He's the best dad I could ever have," she said seriously. The judge smiled and signed the official papers. At that moment, Michael became Emily's legal father, and she gained a last name she would carry with pride, Thompson. "Now we're officially family," Michael said, hugging his daughter and sister. "We always were," Emily replied wisely. "It just took the grown-ups a while to figure it out." The Thompson family's life continued to evolve. Jennifer had fully recovered from her anemia and had become a key figure in Michael's company. The social responsibility department she created had already helped dozens of vulnerable families. Emily kept excelling in school and had grown into a confident, happy child. She proudly told everyone she met about her adoptive father and how he had saved her family. Michael discovered that being a father was the greatest challenge and the greatest joy of his life. Every one of Emily's achievements filled him with pride, and every difficulty was overcome together as a family. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. A year after the adoption, Michael received an unexpected phone call. It was from a social worker who helped homeless children. "Mr. Thompson, I've heard about the social work your company does, and I'd like to discuss a special project," the woman said. "What kind of project?" Michael asked, intrigued. "We have many children like your daughter once was, kids who beg for food on the streets because their families are struggling. We'd like to create a program to identify and help these families," the social worker explained. Michael was silent for a moment, remembering the day Emily had tugged on his suit sleeve. If she hadn't found the courage to ask for help, they might never have met. "I'll think about the project and get back to you soon," he promised. That evening, Michael spoke with Jennifer and Emily about the social worker's proposal. "Dad, do you want to help other kids like I used to be?" asked Emily, already calling Michael Dad naturally. "Exactly. I want other children to have the same chance you got," he replied. "Then let's do it," Emily exclaimed enthusiastically. Jennifer smiled, seeing her daughter already thinking of helping others. "Emily's right. It's our responsibility to use our experience to help other families," she agreed. And so the Family First project was born, a program within Michael's company dedicated to identifying homeless children and assisting their families with housing, jobs and medical care. Inspired by their own family's story and coordinated by Jennifer, the project took shape. Emily became a kind of junior ambassador, sharing her story to raise awareness about helping families in need. "When I asked for food for my dad on the street, I didn't know he was my family," she would say during presentations. "Sometimes the family we need is right in front of us. We just need the courage to ask for help." The project was a huge success. Within 2 years, it had helped over 100 families escape vulnerability. Michael discovered that using his wealth to transform lives was far more fulfilling than just accumulating money. His business grew even stronger, now with a clear social purpose. He prioritized hiring people who had benefited from the project, creating a virtuous cycle of social change. Jennifer became a national reference in family assistance programs, often invited to speak in other cities, always accompanied by Michael and Emily. "My sister has always been special, but she needed an opportunity to show her potential," Michael would say proudly during presentations. "And I needed to remember that family isn't just about blood, it's about who's willing to fight together for the same dreams," Jennifer would add. Emily grew up watching her parents work side by side to help others. She developed a strong social conscience early on and a desire to follow her family's example. "When I grow up, I want to help kids like me," she said one Sunday at lunch. "You already do, sweetheart. Your story inspires so many people," Michael replied. "But I want to help more. I don't want any child to have to beg for food on the street," Emily insisted. Michael and Jennifer exchanged a proud glance, moved by the girl they had raised. Emily had turned suffering into compassion, need into solidarity. As the years passed, the family grew even closer. Michael learned to balance work and personal life, never missing an important moment in Emily's life. Jennifer became financially independent, but chose to stay near her brother to keep the family united. Emily excelled in everything: academics, sports, and especially in her ability to connect with people of all ages. She had inherited her mother's emotional intelligence and her adoptive father's determination. On Emily's 10th birthday, Michael threw a special celebration in the park where they often strolled on Sundays. He invited all the families helped by Family First, along with many of Emily's school friends. During the party, Michael gave an emotional speech. "5 years ago, a brave little girl tugged my suit sleeve and asked for help. In that moment, she didn't know she was saving my life too. Emily taught me that true success isn't measured by the money we make, but by the love we share and the lives we touch," he said, his voice trembling. Jennifer also spoke at the party. "My daughter taught me that it's never too late to start over and that love can heal any hurt. Michael taught me that family is who stands by you in tough times, not necessarily who you were born with," she said, looking affectionately at her brother and daughter. Emily, though still a child, asked to speak too. "I want to thank God for giving me the courage to ask for help that day. If I hadn't, I would have never met my dad or seen my mom happy again. Sometimes, the best things in life begin when we ask for help," she said, bringing tears to everyone's eyes. The party was a success, but the most special moment was when Michael, Jennifer, and Emily sat together on the park swing, watching all the happy families around them. "Dad, do you regret anything?" Emily asked. "I regret taking so long to meet you, but I don't regret anything that happened after," Michael replied. "What about you, Mom?" Emily asked Jennifer. "I regret holding on to hurt for so long, but I've learned that forgiveness frees the one who forgives more than the one who's forgiven," Jennifer answered wisely. "And I don't regret anything," Emily declared. "Not the hunger, not the fear, not the sadness, because all of it brought me to you." Michael hugged the two most important women in his life and knew he'd found the true meaning of happiness. It wasn't in the buildings he constructed or the money he earned. It was in that embrace, in that moment, in the family, destiny had improbably brought together. Years later, when Emily graduated with a degree in social work, she decided to start her own non-profit dedicated to homeless children. Michael and Jennifer were her first investors and advisors. "Now it's your turn to change the world, sweetheart," Michael said at the non-profit's opening. "I'm not changing it alone. You taught me family is a team, and teams win together," Emily replied. Emily's organization grew quickly and became a national model. She developed innovative methods to identify and help vulnerable children, always drawing from her own experience. Michael remained a successful businessman, but now all his projects had a social component. He became known not just for his business success, but for his company's social responsibility. Jennifer wrote a book about their family's story and how they found their way back to each other and forgave. The book became a bestseller and was adapted into a movie that inspired thousands of families across the United States. In every talk she gave, Jennifer ended with the same line: "Love doesn't know lost time. It only knows reclaimed time." Michael, Jennifer, and Emily continued living near one another, having dinner together every Sunday and celebrating every milestone as a family. They created their own traditions, like traveling together on vacations and volunteering at social projects during Christmas. Michael's company expanded to other states, always maintaining its social commitment. Each new branch created jobs for vulnerable people and ran assistance programs for local families. Emily married at 28 to a young doctor she met during volunteer work. The ceremony was simple but moving, with Michael walking her down the aisle and Jennifer as her matron of honor. "You'll always be my brave girl," Michael whispered in his daughter's ear before giving her away. "And you'll always be my hero dad," Emily replied, kissing his cheek. 2 years after the wedding, Emily gave Michael and Jennifer the greatest gift they could receive: a grandson. The baby was born healthy and was named Michael Thompson Jr. in honor of his grandfather. "Now our family has another generation to continue our love story," said Jennifer, cradling her grandson in her arms. "And to keep helping other families find their way," added Michael, overcome with emotion. Emily watched her son in the arms of his grandparents, knowing he would grow up surrounded by the same unconditional love she had received. The child would have everything she lacked in early childhood: security, affection, and a united family. "Son, you'll grow up knowing family is everything in this life," she whispered to the baby. Little Michael grew up hearing stories of how his family came to be, how his mother was brave enough to ask for help, how his grandfather learned that money without love is worthless, and how his grandmother discovered that forgiveness is the greatest gift we can give one another. By age 5, the boy already showed the same social awareness as his family. He insisted on joining volunteer projects and always asked how he could help other children. "Grandpa, why don't some kids have food?" he asked one day. "Because not all families have the same opportunities, my boy. That's why it's important to help whenever we can," Michael explained. "When I grow up, I'm going to help all the children in the world," the boy declared with the trademark determination of the Thompson family. Michael smiled, seeing the tradition of compassion would continue through the generations. The family that had begun with a plea for help on the street was now a force for change in society. One Sunday afternoon, 20 years after that first encounter on the street, Michael, Jennifer, Emily, and little Michael gathered in the same park where they used to walk when Emily was a child. "Dad, do you remember what I said to you that first day?" Emily asked, watching her son play on the same playground she once did. "Sir, I don't have anything to eat. Please help me," Michael recited, recalling perfectly the words that changed his life. "Did you know those words would save our whole family?" Jennifer asked. "I didn't. I just knew I needed help, and Daddy seemed like a good person," Emily replied. "And he was, still is," Jennifer said, looking affectionately at her brother. Michael gazed at the family he had built and felt like the richest man in the world, not because of money, but because of the love he received every day from these extraordinary people. "You know what I've learned from both of you," Michael said. "I've learned that life only has meaning when we have someone to share our triumphs and challenges with. And I've learned it's never too late to start over and that love can heal any wound," Jennifer added. "And I've learned that sometimes we need the courage to ask for help to find our true family," Emily concluded. Little Michael ran over to them, hugging all 3 adults at once. "I love our family," he said simply. At that moment, sitting on the park bench, wrapped in each other's arms and happiness, Michael knew he had found life's true treasure. It wasn't in buildings or professional achievements. It was in that collective embrace, in that shared love, in that family destiny had brought together in such a special way. As the sun set, painting the sky in golden hues. Michael reflected aloud. Funny how one simple sentence changed everything. Sir, I don't have anything to eat. Please help me. If I had ignored it, if I'd walked past, I'd never have known true love. But you didn't ignore it. And do you know why? Emily asked. Why? Because your soul recognized mine. Family always recognizes each other, even when they don't know their family, she answered wisely. Jennifer held her brother's and daughter's hands. Thank you for never giving up on us. Thank you for fighting for our family when I couldn't fight anymore, she said, her voice trembling. We never give up on the people we love, Michael replied. And we never will. When they returned home that night, Michael passed by the same spot where he had first met Emily. He stopped the car for a moment and gazed at the sidewalk where it all began. What is it, Dad? Emily asked, noticing he had paused. Just giving thanks to this place. This is where my life truly began, he answered. Our life, Emily corrected. Our life began here. And so the Thompson family continued their journey, more united and stronger than ever. Michael retired at 65 to dedicate himself fully to social projects and his family. Jennifer kept coordinating social assistance programs, now nationally recognized for her work. Emily expanded her NGO to other countries, always carrying with her the values she learned from her family. And little Michael Jr. grew up surrounded by love, learning early on that true wealth lies in the bonds we build with the people we cherish. The story of the family reunited through a cry for help became legendary in New York City. Many people began stopping when children asked for help on the street, remembering that behind every plea, there might be a story of transformation waiting to unfold. Michael never tired of telling the story of how a brave little girl changed his life by tugging at his suit jacket and asking for food. And he always ended his talks with the same words. Sometimes the greatest blessings in our lives come disguised as cries for help. The question is, are we willing to stop and listen? And so the Thompson family proved that love can overcome any obstacle, forgiveness can heal any wound, and sometimes you have to lose everything to find what truly matters in life. The end. So what did you think of this heartwarming story of family reunion? Do you believe Michael made the right choice by helping Emily? Tell us in the comments which part moved you the most and if you've ever experienced something similar. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss other stories that will touch your heart.